This is the Unspoken Podcast on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. It is episode number 9 on Tom Albano, along with Nick Federa. And Nick, my God, the weather we've been having lately.
Oh my God, spring is coming too fast. I'm like a bear. I'm not ready for this.
For those of you who don't know or haven't been able to tell after, I don't know how many episodes it is now. This is the 9, so 8 actually. We're in New York, and instead of late February weather, which is typically very cold, it's like spring.
Yeah, it almost is, and that's like I said. I'm like a bear. I wake up from hibernation. I expect it to still be cold.
I know, but I'm saying I've been getting used to dressing in like cold weather attire, and now I have my window open. I am in a short sleeve shirt, and I'm wearing shorts.
Well, that's global warming for you. It is.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't know if this is a good thing or it's a bad thing because, there's global warming, but I could get used to this. Maybe it's because part of me wishes I lived in, like, Texas or Florida.
Oh, believe me, having been to Florida, you don't want to. And I was at the only good part of Florida, which is Disney World.
Weird shit happens in Florida.
Exactly. But speaking of lukewarm, tempered with some craziness, the NBA trade deadline has come and gone.
Oh, that was a perfect segue. Perfect segue. Yeah, the NBA trade deadline has come and gone, and well, it sucked.
Yes, you know what it's like? It's like having a birthday close to Christmas. You gotta blow out. You gotta blow out of gifts on your birthday, but for Christmas you don't get anything. That's what that felt like.
We came off NBA All-Star Weekend, where our boy Kristaps Porzingis won the skills challenge.
Good for him. It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Right.
No snark here.
Dunk contest. I mean, it wasn't as good as last year, but I don't think it sucked as bad as everyone said it was.
I have no opinion because I didn't watch the skills competition last year, so or the dunk contest. So,
and of course, the All-Star game, both teams played and finished with scores near the 200 mark because who cares about defense in an All-Star game?
Exactly. Same thing with the NHL All-Star game. But coming off the All-Star game, we got a volcanic bit of news. Our boy has been traded. DeMarcus Cousins has been traded from the Kings to the New Orleans Pelicans for basically a handful of M&Ms. A handful of M&Ms and bits of string.
You can tell I'm getting ready, right?
Oh boy! And I thought the Lenape Indians got screwed over when they sold Manhattan for a handful of beads. But this is
Let me tell you something, Nick. Let me tell you something. That when that trade happened, you know what the first thing I did was? I have this group chat with my friends. It's like a Group Me, I believe this name of it is. It's Group Me, and we have this little group chat. It was originally for fantasy football, but now it's like anything sports because football is over. First thing I did was I took a picture of the Kings logo, the Sacramento Kings logo, and I essentially memed it. I wrote on the top, "Who needs a D-League?" on the bottom, "When you have a Sacramento Kings."
Oh, that's good.
Honestly, this is fucking pathetic. This really fucking is. This Sacramento Kings team is a big piece of shit. They should be the Sacramento shits. I'm sorry.
Well, the Sacramento Turdmongers. That works.
Okay, that works too. But, I mean, this team, I don't think this team wants to win. I have concluded that this team does not want to win. They are essentially what a jobber is to WWE, the Sacramento Kings are to the NBA. They are just a team that everybody runs over just to get somewhere else.
I do have a question, because who in God's name is Buddy Hield, and why was their owner so hot for him? Who is this guy, and why is he so important all of a sudden?
I don't know, but here's what I'll say. When NBA 2K17 denies the deal, like takes that deal that was just proposed, denies it flat out completely, you need help.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's blackmail or maybe the owner and GM of the Kings were hypnotized. Maybe that could be it.
Or maybe there's a conspiracy theory going on.
Well, there's always a conspiracy theory. There's always a conspiracy theory in basketball, and I don't know, 99 times out of 100, 99 times out of 100 they're usually wrong. But then you get that glorious 1%.
And
that glorious 1%.
And you never know what's going to be the glorious 1%. That's the best thing.
And this is exactly it. But coming off that trade, we all thought that, if this is what they do before the trade deadline, imagine what they're going to do at the trade deadline.
Okay, wait. I got to stop you right there, because I have more to say about the Sacramento Kings. Because honestly, I think they are probably one of the worst teams in professional sports today. They have had, since the 2006-2007 season, they have had, 9 head coaches, counting current head coach Dave Georgier. They have 9 head coaches in that span. You cannot form a team like that. They've had, and actually, correct me if I'm wrong, actually no, I have it right here, I'm right. The last 5, if we count this season, it's 5 seasons. The last 5 seasons, they've had head coaches that only lasted 1 season. You can't form a good team like that. That's one of the worst things you can do in sports, because then the players have to adjust to each new head coach. You will not win games like that. That's why I asked, does this team even want to win anymore? At this point, I feel like Sacramento has wasted too much money on that Golden One or whatever it's called center.
Yeah.
At this point, Sacramento, I think they need a complete facelift. They need to freaking... I don't want to take a team away from fans, but at this point, they need such a complete facelift. They need a whole makeover. They need to hit the hard reset button. I think they need to move somewhere. They got to change their identity. Essentially, they were going into witness protection, yes.
Yeah.
And then
turn off your fingertips with acid, wear a fake beard, walk somewhere with a fedora, go in disguise is what I'm saying. Go in disguise. I just don't understand. Was this behavioral? Did DeMarcus Cousins not get along with the Kings front office? That's what I thought it was originally.
That's my best guess. I mean, it's the weekend. It's nearly 1 week since this trade has happened, and we still don't have any answers. Any firm answers, I should say.
Nor will we get any, I don't think.
I don't think so either.
Because it's always like this when a bad team with one good star makes a bad move.
Although it's good for the Pelicans,
oh yes, it definitely makes them a contender, and it does, and it makes them dangerous. However, see, you ever have that moment in childhood where you beg your parents for something, not expecting them to say no, but then they say yes, and then you walk away saying, how the hell did I get away with that?
Right. Exactly. Essentially, that is what happened here.
Yes, essentially that is what has occurred.
Except the Sacramento Kings, they're not even a strict parent. They are, I don't even know if you can call them a parent. They're just completely broken. They are a broken down piece. They are a broken down form of a human body is what they are.
Well, they're the Hells Angels you hire to babysit when you can't be bothered to do it yourself.
Pretty much, except this is worse than the Hells Angels. This is, what the fuck is this? What the fuck are the Sacramento Kings? I can't even answer that.
Exactly. But this was supposed to be, at least I thought, was the kickoff to a flurry of trade news. People going to be moving left, right, up, down, sideways, and every which other direction. But
yeah, I think you and I and everybody else thought that.
I was obsessively checking my phone every 5 minutes yesterday for the trade deadline when the trade deadline ended, and nothing happened.
Nothing happened. It's completely sad. It is completely
did not do anything. I'm sorry I have to bring up those clowns, but
No, nobody did anything. Nobody except the freaking Pelicans Kings trade, which shouldn't have happened.
Oh, but the Thunder got Taj Gibson, which woohoo!
Oh, woohoo! Party!
Yes, we're partying like Kennedys around here. Woo!
But you did mention the Knicks, and yes, they did do nothing. So for that, I shall play the circus music for you. There.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, you can't. Oh my God.
This team is a circus. But I wasn't really expecting them to do too much. Although I was thinking they were going to get rid of Derrick Rose, but I guess he's here to stay. And I guess Paul George is there to stay at the Indiana.
Oh, good for us. Wonderful.
Good for the whole NBA, right? I mean, everybody gets to stay everywhere. I'm sorry. The NBA trade deadline sucks. I mean, it sucked this year, and honestly, nothing beats the MLB trade deadline.
No. Yeah.
The NHL trade deadline may come second, but MLB, I don't think anybody can beat that, especially with the kind of coverage that MLB Network gives you.
Yeah, and the flurry of activity you read about, usually from 2 weeks before the trade deadline up until that day. It's a hot take factory is what it is.
Right. And even after, because trades can technically be finalized after, as long as there's something before I believe in MLB. I mean, didn't they change the rules in MLB? Because like last year, the trade deadline was like on August 1st or something, because July 31st was a weekend.
Yeah, I think they might have. Although I'm not quite sure what the day falls on this year, though.
I mean, to me, it'll always be July 31st, just out of habit.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's like by July 31st at whatever it is. It's like, is it 3 p.m. or 4 p.m.?
3 p.m.
It's 3 p.m. Mm-hmm. But like, you know, after the few minutes after, I mean, there's still that fever because trades can be finalized. But that's what I was expecting here. It was like the trade deadline passed, but they're like, everyone's like on Twitter, oh, hang on. You got to keep in mind that deals can be finalized afterwards. So I was keeping that in mind. I'm thinking, okay, so you know what? Because there was no activity beforehand, watch a big bombshell happen. They're going to be like, 11th hour thing, Paul George is traded, or 11th hour thing, Derrick Rose is traded. Nothing happened.
Nope. It is. And you know what? See, this is why I don't expect things to happen, because when you expect things to happen, you're pretty much disappointed most of the time. You know? Just never expect anything and you won't be disappointed.
That's a sad way to look at it, but it's also a realistic way to look at it.
Well, I'm a cynical bastard, so that's pretty much where I'm coming from.
I get where you're coming from. All right, Nick, what's your final word on this stupid trade deadline?
Thank God I don't have to hear about it anymore.
That's one of mine, and the other is fuck the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
Go be the new Seattle Supersonics at this point.
Please.
Just go away.
Just spare us all. Spare us.
Go under freaking, what's it called? Get a makeover. Go under liposuction surgery and just change your appearance. That's what you need.
Check into hotels under fake names.
Right.
Just saying.
Or you could just end yourself, and then we can get an NBA expansion team. Something that's not...
That's thought I was harsh.
You know what? No, I take that back, because the last time we had an NBA expansion team, the Charlotte Bobcats happened.
And the less we talk about that, the better off we'll be.
Yes, exactly. All right. This is the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. It's time for part 2 of 6 of our MLB preview for 2017. Spring training is officially underway. Spring training games, meaning, is officially underway. We talked about the NL East last time around. It's time to talk about the NL Central and our defending World Series champions, the Chicago Cubs. Who would have thought that in late February 2017, we'd be saying defending World Series champion Chicago Cubs?
The fact that those words came out of your mouth and weren't followed by an uninterrupted stream of raucous laughter is amazing to me. You had told me a year ago that you would say that sentence. I would have laughed. Not only would I have laughed, I would have pissed myself laughing.
Maybe not a year ago, but maybe 10 years ago, yeah.
And still, a year ago, because I still thought that this was good, that the GOAT was going to come back, because I truly did think this team was cursed. But now, you know what? Maybe they just actually did suck for 100 years.
But you know what? I was so happy for them when they won, though.
I was, too. I was absolutely rooting for them, and I may have involuntarily shouted when the last out was made. Yeah, some Yankee fan I am. Bandwagon.
I'm not a fan, but you can feel good about other teams. You can feel good about other teams.
I did. I mean, I felt good when the Cavs won. But, you know, the Cubs, the fact that I'd never seen that before in my life, probably, and I didn't think I would ever see it, was probably a factor in that.
Yeah, exactly.
But the question coming into this season, especially for the entire division,
will they repeat?
Will they repeat, and how many games will they win the division by? Because if you look at the NL Central team by team, the Cubs are really the only ones, other than the Cardinals, who have a chance at capturing that crown. Because think about it,
I'm ending the discussion right here. Cubs are repeating as NL Central champs. I'm saying it right now.
I'm not going to make my pick yet. I mean, let's look at it. I mean, the Brewers are rebuilding. They got Travis Shaw in a trade for the Red Sox, and he's supposed to be good at third base.
Right, but the point is they're rebuilding. They're not going to be anything big. Last year they finished. Let me look here. Last year they finished at 73 and 89.
Yeah, and even if Ryan Braun stays healthy, I don't know if he can. It's him and who else?
Right. It's a bunch of team. It's a bunch of who's on that team.
Yes, it's a veritable who's that of baseball talent.
Exactly. So I mean, I honestly could see them finishing 73 and 89 again. Maybe 75 and 87.
They may be a little bit closer to 500.
Yeah, I could see that. I'd say they just missed. Maybe around like the mid-70s in the wins range. Maybe they just missed out.
But even in the Reds, I mean, they're completely tearing everything down. I mean,
they claimed. I have a couple of things out here. They claimed outfielder Gabby Guerrero from the Diamondbacks and Juan Guerrero from the Angels off of waivers. Kevin Sampson and Ramon Cabrera designated for assignment. They were non-tendered, along with Gabby Guerrero. But Gabby Guerrero was signed to a minor league deal. Maybe he's in spring training right now.
Plus, they have Dilson Herrera at second. For our Mets fans out there, he was supposed to be the second baseman of the future. I guess the future was...
Not then. But honestly, the Reds, they are in the same. They're in the same cellar as the Brewers, essentially.
Yeah, they may actually end up being the cellar dwellers. But with the Cardinals,
I mean, the Reds were 68 and 94. How worse can you get?
yeah, there's not much further to go than down, especially with the talent that they have on that team that is not yet ready to contribute.
Right. We have the Pittsburgh Pirates, who finished 78 and 83 last season.
And that was a surprise that they did. That was a surprise that they struggled as much as they did, because everybody kept, going into last season, they all thought that this is going to be the year the Pirates finally put it together and go further than one round of playoffs, and they just imploded.
It wasn't. It was a complete implosion. Andrew McCutchen couldn't leave that team.
I don't get it. I don't understand what happened.
I think it was a shaky year. It was just a really shaky year. For reasons why, I don't know. Do I think they'll improve better than 78-83? Yeah. Because I remember when it was an achievement to them a few years ago when they got to 81 wins. When they got to at least 500 and over 500. I remember it was like a party over there, even though they didn't win the World Series. I'm not even sure if they made the playoffs.
Even when they made the playoffs, it was a big deal. It was a big deal in Pittsburgh. But I'm just wondering whether this is just a 1 year kind of aberration, or is this the start of a bigger backslide? Because these, their go-to guys, their stars are getting up there. They're not ancient, but they're getting older, and I'm wondering if their window was just shut for a moment, or it's actually kind of closing, and it's closing on somebody's fingertips.
I mean, that's the question, and I don't know. I'm getting a little apprehensive to, go one way or the other with them, because it's like they're definitely going to be better than our basement dwellers, the Reds and the Brewers, but I don't know if they're going to be up in contention with the Cardinals and the Cubs. I'm sort of in the middle with the Pirates. I don't know. It's like you said, it's tough because last season came as such a shock how mediocre they were.
They'll probably end up, if I had to guess, I would probably say they'll end up being third place.
They will be third place.
I would be shocked if they didn't, if they were lower than that. But, that seems like a good place to put them.
I'll put them at... You know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put them at 500, 81. Prove to me, like how we had the prove me stuff during the
Super Bowl.
Not the Super Bowl, but the playoffs. How we had to prove it to me I believe it was to the Falcons and to the Cowboys. This is what it's going to be. Prove me that it was just a bad year. Prove it.
And we'll believe you if you can. Like I said, we will be singing your praises if you can prove it. If you can overachieve.
Right. If you can get over 500, then I can say, you know what? It was just a bad year then. But if you fall under 500 again, what's that say?
What does that say about the talent you have in the organization? And It's just a shame. But speaking of that, brings us to the Cardinals. And God, have I been waiting for these guys to go below 500. Oh, my God. Maybe it's just because I read a lot of Deadspin, but Cardinals are really starting to annoy me.
Well, the biggest thing in the offseason, you can argue it was one of their signings, but to me, it was not one of their signings. It was the penalty given to the Cardinals by Commissioner Rob Manfred.
Oh, for the hacking, yeah.
For the Chris Correa's hacking of the Houston Astros database.
And, oh my God. Fuck that up.
I mean, here's the thing. It's the draft. I mean, let me see. Let me see what the, penalties were. Well, first of all, $279,038 fine. I love how it's just so exact.
Well, of course, otherwise they'll stiff them.
The Cardinals also had to give the Astros the number 56 overall selection and the number 75 overall selection. And that means St. Louis does not have a first-round pick in this year's draft, and they have to pay the Astros $2 million.
But do you really think it's going to be that much of an impact on the?
I don't know, because it's like what we said. It's like the draft, the MLB draft especially, is a crapshoot.
Yeah, it is. You really. There's no guarantees at all.
Right.
At all.
I don't think it's going to be an overly big deal, but I mean, having to pay those fines, though, that's a little, a punch right in the gut.
It is. But in terms of who they got Dexter Fowler to play left, and
they got Dexter Fowler, they got Matt Halliday, and they got Brett Cecil. And they gave up Jamie Garcia in that trade, I believe we mentioned. Was it last? Yeah, because we talked about the analytics last week. So last week we mentioned the Garcia trade. They gave up Jamie Garcia, and in return they received Chris Ellis, Luke Dykstra, and John Gans.
We have no idea if those prospects will be hot shit or they just end up being
shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But Cecil, Halliday, Fowler. Those are three names.
Yeah, I know we know Brett Cecil because he spent years with the Blue Jays, and I went from hating him to hating him more. Every time he played against the Yankees, so at least he's out of that division, so I don't have to look at his stupid face anymore.
And speaking of Yankees, we get rid of Matt Halliday. Matt Halliday now. Actually, oh no, we got Matt Halliday.
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, wait a minute. Yeah, we got rid of Matt.
We'll get to that when we do the East.
I know. No, you know why? Because it just says Major League Free Agent. So I saw all the things on my thing. I thought it was everybody, who signed. But then it's like Matt Halliday's name is there. It's like, why is that there? Shouldn't there be another section for, people who were gone?
Well, that's probably what they meant.
Yeah, no, but hang on. I'll show it to you here on the screen. If you look at this, they put the signees and the leavers in one section.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Why did they do that?
Well, that's just bad layout work, but you can't blame them for that. But we'll
God damn it, Wikipedia!
Yes, that's just like I said, it's just bad layout work. But we'll get to that when we do the.
Look at the Holiday. Yeah, they lost Matt Halliday, but they got Dexter Fowler, which I think would be good for the Chicago-St. Louis rivalry.
Oh yes, and. As much as I want the Cardinals to go away, they are like the cockroaches of the NL Central. They just don't die. Oh my God.
I think they're gonna do well, but I think they're just gonna miss out on the second wild card spot. I still feel like the Giants and Cardinals will still just miss out to, as we said last week, the Braves and whoever wasn't in the NL East. Like I had the Nats, so I said the Mets, and you had the Mets, so you said the Nats.
Yeah.
But then we have the Chicago Cubs, and honestly, it's a lot of the same lineup as last year.
Yeah, the question here, of course, is, can they do it again now that they have supposedly have Schwarber back at full health? And can they, since they lost Aroldis Chapman after running him into the ground like a prize stallion? Thanks for doing that to us assholes. But can they do it with Wade Davis?
I'm sure they can. I was just gonna read off names. I was just gonna say John Lester, John Lackey, Kyle Hendricks, Wade Davis, Jake Arrieta, Wilson Contreras, Miguel Montero, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Addison Russell, Ben Zobrist. You get it. They are an all-star caliber team.
They are stacked upon stacked upon stacked.
They are still stacked. Even despite losing guys like Dexter Fowler and Jorge Soler, honestly, they're still a stacked team. I still don't have any doubt the Cubs have the ability to repeat as NL Central champions and maybe even World Series champions.
I do believe they can, it's a matter of, especially when the run was, well, not necessarily improbable, but people were expecting you to fuck up and you never did.
Right.
Can you keep that kind of mindset where nobody believes in us? We better go out there and show them what we're made of. Because, if you get complacent, then it starts to snowball into something worse.
Right, but I think after 100+ years of suffering, they want to put on a good performance year after year after year.
And that's what their fans will be expecting, because now that they've had a taste of victory, they want it again and again and again.
They're going to become like us in Boston, essentially.
Yeah, well, I think they'll become more like Boston because,
right.
Your franchise becomes successful, you still find ways to bitch. Yeah,
I don't know.
That does describe Yankee fans, I think.
Right. No, but I was saying, don't treat Cubs like that. Cubs fans, I think, have a lot more innocence because they've been waiting 100+ years.
I will give them that now. But in a couple of years' time, if they continue to win, that is what will happen.
Anyways, final word. I'm not going to say World Series champions yet. I still want to go through the other divisions, go through our other parts. But I say, without a shadow of a doubt, not even close, Cubs are repeating as NL Central champs.
They will win over 100 games, and they will win the division. That's what I'm saying.
You think they're going to win 103 again?
I would go 101.
Okay, I'm going to say they just miss out on it. Not over, though. I'm going to say 99. I'm going to give them one off.
So 99. So that's,
I'm saying 99 and 63.
So you have them winning the division in 99 60. That seems fair. That seems good, actually.
Yeah, because I feel like maybe they'll lower from a little. They won't be as hot on the momentum, but I still think they're going to blow out the rest of the division.
Of course, we could be doing this podcast in July and August and have them be, second, third place, and then we're going, what happened?
Yeah, they'll be like, what the fuck? Anyways, you're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Nick, you have a hot take this week. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Indeed I do, for us Yankee fans, and forgive me if I seem a little unfair, but for those of you context is necessary. For those of you who do not know, the Yankees president is Randy Levine, a man who has the fashion sense and the brain power of a rabid squirrel. And Dellin Betances, one of our best relievers, setup guy, local New York, local product, went to arbitration hearings. And arbitration hearings are usually horrible because you sit in a room and have, the team brass basically pick you apart, basically giving you justification upon justification for you not making as much money as you wanted. So he went to that table with his agent asking for $5 million, which he thought was fair considering the amount given to the amount that was given to relievers this offseason, which is frankly insane. But still, knowing the market, you ask for $5 million. They, of course, didn't give it to them. So all was going to be quiet. Everything was going to be fine. Showed up to camp. Everything's fine. But then Randy Levine takes an interview and says, "Oh well, based on his interview, his skill level, we just thought it was ridiculous." It's almost like saying the exact quote was, "Oh, I'm Randy Levine and I'm also an astronaut." That's basically what that was like. And Betances, that's actually what he said. That's
what the fuck sense does that make?
Meaning that Dellin Betances, he wants closer money, but that's like saying, I'm president of the Yankees and I'm also an astronaut.
Okay, I mean, I get it now. That's a weird quote. I'm sorry.
Exactly. And Dellin Betances was rightfully upset. He was very, very, very upset, actually. And even a day after he made his initial comments, they said, "How do you feel today?" "I'm still upset by it." And what the fuck are you doing? doing trashing your reliever like that? You just gave him permission to leave in free agency. Why would you do that to homegrown talent? Why do you throw your players under the bus?
Which we don't need, because I've been liking the Yankees' direction of young right now with everybody from Tyler Austin, Aaron Judge, Dellin Betances. Like, I've loved this, youth movement we've been having.
It's been very promising. Who knows if it'll actually pan out? But hey, hope is a good thing.
Hope is a very good thing.
This man on this team, and do not give him permission to be unhappy. Because he leaves, and then he goes somewhere else, and then he kicks your asses. You got nobody to blame but yourself because you couldn't keep your goddamn mouth shut. I don't get it. Why would a team president, of course, you like the Yankees, so they like to hold themselves to a higher standard. Why act like that?
Well, my question is, where did this come from?
Exactly.
Not just that, but I mean him. Where did he come from? Where's Cashman? And usually Cashman stuff.
Nothing at all. But I just, you know what it is? You grow up, especially as a Yankee fan, you grow up, it's like, oh, my team does things the right way, right? Everybody all the brass on my team know what they're doing, right? We're not like those other guys those other owners that do these horrible things, trash their own players and embezzle money. But then the creeping realization sets in, and it's daunting. It's slow, but when it hits you, it is hard. It's stomach churning, I should say.
It's a heartbreaking oh shit is what.
And you learn that the people running your team can be just as big as assholes as everybody else. Now, I'm not discounting the work that Randy Levine has done growing the Yankee brand. But why would you do this? Why? He's done good work. You didn't have to say anything. You could have just kept your mouth shut and everything would have been fine.
I really don't have much of an answer for that. I mean, what's the average that... I'm trying to look that up right now. What the average is that, a reliever has been signed for this season?
Well, going by what they gave to Chapman, which was almost over $40 million, right?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I think. I'm not quite sure what they gave him, but...
I mean, he's going to be paid $3 million, and he's going to be the highest paid first-time arbitration-eligible setup man. So it's like, I guess I can kind of see, why maybe he was asking for a little much, and I can see that. But here's my big question. You won! What's the point of saying these things afterwards where it's like, you won?
Yes, you won. Don't be an abysmal winner. There is people always talk about sore losers. There are sore winners too.
There are.
And they're in sports.
Or sometimes sore winners become sore losers. Take, for example, the Golden State Warriors.
Exactly. And you don't want to be like that if he decides to leave and goes. And I have a special place in my heart for not only homegrown talent, but hometown guys. And Betances, and he's a Yankee through and through. He bleeds pinstripes. He was there, I think, during Cone or Wells' perfect game. He was there in the stands.
Wow.
Do not give this man an excuse to leave, because then he will make you pay for it. That happened with Reggie Jackson when he left the Yankees in 1981. And
I believe it was
the
81.
Angels and come back and then hit home runs off him. You don't want to give that man an excuse to kick your asses.
Yeah, I really don't want Betances to leave. I mean, he's a great setup man. It's like, as much as people were saying, we needed to get rid of somebody from like last year. I loved the no runs DMC before the trade deadline happened. We got rid of Miller and Chapman.
You need, especially in this version of the Yankees that they're building, it doesn't seem like the rotation will be that strong. They could have a strong offense, but you will need a stable bullpen. And especially in this market when bullpen or good bullpen arms are hard to come by. You need to take what you have, grab it, and not let go. You need to actually bear hug it. That's what you need to do.
I don't know if you could say that the bullpen is horrible, but it wouldn't hurt to have guys like Dellin Betances in key roles like setup men.
Exactly. He's hoping that somebody can calm him down and he decides not to leave. And if I was Randy Levine, or if I was anybody in the Yankee brass, I would present him with the biggest fucking fruit basket you ever saw. A fruit basket or a box of chocolates the size of the Rock of Gibraltar.
You remember, what was it, around 2010, 2011, when they were talking about, Derek Jeter's contract, it was up, and there were arguments about how much he was worth?
Mm-hmm.
I was really getting worried then. I'm like, oh my God, it could finally happen.
And it was a distinct possibility, and it's just open mouth, insert foot.
That's the thing. If something like that happens to a guy like Derek Jeter who led pinstripes, it can happen to anybody.
He was Mr. Yankee for the 90s and the early 2000s. You cannot. The
good news is he went on to prove everybody, all his doubters, wrong and had a resurgence in 2011, 2012.
Exactly. But, like I said, you do not want to give these guys excuses for not being happy. You're the Yankees. You're setting yourself up as the Shangri-La of baseball. The bastion where everybody treats you right, you become a star. Please, Don't let us become like this. Don't let us become the third-rate franchise. Oh, God. I don't know if I can deal with that. And call me spoiled if you must. And I am very, very, very spoiled as a Yankee fan. And a lot of times I don't realize I'm spoiled. But can you just grant me this? Just grant me this one thing. This tiny little minuscule bite-sized, pea-sized thing. Please grant me that.
I can't grant you that directly. I don't work for the Yankees.
I'm not saying you. I'm just saying.
What I can grant to everybody is this edition of the Unspoken Podcast, or the Undetermined Podcast Network. Nick, we are on to our final topic of the day. It's time for our pop culture topic of the day.
Yes, indeedy.
And we're going to go a little different here. We're not going to be talking about anything like the Oscars or whatever. We're going to be talking about...
Who gives a shit, but...
but we're going to be talking about another form of entertainment, a form of sport at the same time as well. It is sports entertainment, a.k.a. WWE.
The only... Like it was going to be anything else.
Well, the reason is for this topic is we got into a conversation, I believe it was last Monday, where we were discussing the phrase time-honored tradition.
And baseball has, a lot of meaning that there are a lot of purists saying that, oh, this is how baseball should be, or this is how basketball should be, or this is how football should be. Purists. But the question is there really that kind of tradition in sports entertainment?
In the world of professional wrestling, it's weird. I believe I described it to you as there's not one element. It is rather the whole spectacle as a whole. There's an element of spectacle when it comes to professional wrestling, and I think that is the time-honored tradition.
Yeah.
It has been the time-honored tradition since Vince McMahon, at least, took the then WWF National.
and he turned it into billions of dollars. And
Exactly.
I would say that views on what wrestling should and should not be basically depends on the area you were born in. Because, if you grew up watching wrestling in the 50s and the 60s, your idea of what the sport should be is really different from, guys from our generation who grew up in the 90s and had Stone Cold Steve Austin and Goldberg and the WCW and Sting.
Right. But I also think it depends on areas and more specific times of wrestling as well. Because if you grew up, I'm going to try to think of a good example here, is before the WCW was the WCW with Nitro and Thunder and all that, you had it as part of the NWA. You had the NWA and the WCW and the Mid-South, Southeastern, where it was, the wrestling style.
Yeah, wrestling.
It was the wrestling style. There's like old-timey ways down there. If you ever listen to the legendary manager Jim Cornette, he talks about how there's a lot of stuff in this new era of wrestling, 2017 wrestling, that he doesn't like because he rather the old school, the traditional ways from like the 1980s when there were still the territories before Vince McMahon bought everybody out. Yeah, that's how wrestling used to work. For those of you who don't know, they used to be territories. So the Northeast would be one wrestling territory. The Southeast would be a territory. The Mid-South, the Midwest.
Each had their own rules of doing things. Each
right.
had their own kind of idiosyncrasies. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much.
And wrestling. Was there ever really since you're a lot more knowledgeable about, the sport and the history of the sport than I am, I would put it to you, was there a time when wrestling was a sport, or was it always kind of entertainment?
Well, what's funny is, I guess back in the time that you say, like the 50s, 60s, even up to the Vince McMahon 80s, there's this term around the wrestling industry called kayfabe. And what that is essentially like the fourth wall, basically. You never break the fourth wall. And back in the 80s, like even outside the ring, you never broke the fourth wall.
You never turn around to the crowd and talk to the crowd, that kind of thing.
Exactly. The good guys and the bad guys shouldn't, be seen hanging out. They shouldn't be traveling in the same car.
So there was that kind of etiquette.
Right. Like you treated wrestling like it was real. And the thing was, for the longest time, when it was assumed to be real, even with the goofy characters and everything of the 80s, when wrestling was seen as real, they were always under state athletic commission rules. And in some instances, I believe there's still some where there are some state athletic commission rules followed, but in order to avoid having to do that, I believe, and in order to, because, money, Vince, I think it was in 88 or 89, came out and said, everything we do is entertainment.
So there was a good way to increase revenue, and basically pee on the rule book, to use a crude term.
You can, if you want to use that crude term, yeah. But also, if you even go back to the points of the 80s with like the rock and wrestling connection, where they brought in the stars like Cyndi Lauper, and they were essentially, having celebrities and connecting pop culture and the WWF together. And of course, that led at one point to WrestleMania, which is now going to be in its 33rd year on April 2nd.
My goodness, how time flies.
Mm-hmm. But essentially, to Vince, especially even in those days, Vince, it was never really about the sport. It was the spectacle of it. There is this one really good quote. On the WWE Network, there's this documentary on the most recent WrestleMania, the WrestleMania 32, the behind the scenes. And he has this really, really good quote. WrestleMania today is part rock concert, part theater, part pyrotechnics display, part soap opera, like professional wrestling actually is, all that, and world-class athleticism, again, which, all that is professional wrestling. And all that plus the connection to pop culture, and it makes WrestleMania one of the biggest stages that there is for sports and entertainment combined.
And in a sense that there aren't really time-honored traditions, because the paradigm with that Vince McMahon kind of introduced is turn it into entertainment. So the traditions of wrestling will change depending on the tastes of the audience watching it. Because if the audience decides that they like one thing and don't like another thing, wrestling will adapt.
Well, there's been a long thing going that you will need to be more a part of the internet wrestling community and wrestling fans today, but Vince maybe has lost touch. Key example, Roman Reigns, where they are pushing him as this huge babyface, which is a good guy. They essentially want to make him the next John Cena, but fans are rejecting him. Because I think what fans want, they want something to grow organically, something to grow from them, and not have it like, oh, they're cheering this guy, let's take this guy and shove it down everybody's throats.
So they want it to come organically, not as a result of here's what it is, now have 50 more of it.
Pretty much. But some people, of course, once something becomes popular, will begin to shit on it. It's like anything else.
But I talk about, do you think really they haven't really responded to what people want at all?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on the fan you talk to. I think that's the thing. It's become such a diverse community in the professional wrestling world today. I can definitely say that the WWE that's going on right now, in terms of like the main roster and everything, I did not expect even last year or 2 years ago. Like, they have AJ Styles, and before he came to WWE in 2016, he was one of those guys who was everywhere else in every small independent organization out there and over in Japan, but he never once stepped foot in the WWE ring. Okay, false. He stepped foot, but not as AJ Styles, who AJ Styles is. And when he came out at Royal Rumble 2016, I don't think I've ever heard a louder crowd before.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing, but
right.
I'm talking about time-honored traditions in the sense of.
Well, I think the time-honored.
You have your purists, but the purists are militant, and this absolutely cannot be. Or I will stop if it is.
Well, I think you always got to change with the times. I mean, when WCW was becoming a big threat to WWE and WWE was near bankruptcy, they formed the Attitude Era.
And that definitely brought them back.
Exactly. And I mean, we grew up in the Ruthless Aggression Era, which actually wasn't even that as bad as the Attitude Era. Like, it wasn't Attitude Era-esque. I mean, it was a little bit, but you get what I mean? It wasn't full-on Attitude Era, but
I get it.
There were elements. I think then the PG era happened, and it felt like to throwback to the 80s. I mean, like, John Cena is essentially Super Cena, as he was known. You can't really do that nowadays. I think I like what they're doing now since, like, 2011, 2012. Everything is reality-based. Because essentially that's what society has become, like, all about the social media. Because they criticize WWE for being, like, too social media. Well, honestly, everything is social media nowadays.
You need to be. That's what it is now.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think WWE still changes with the times. Maybe not full on, but they still have elements. And I think WrestleMania is the be-all, end-all of their time-honored tradition. Because it is where the stars come out to play. It is where everything should be saved up for. And They have all these grand entrances. They bring in all the part-timers, which are guys we grew up with now, like Triple H, Brock Lesnar. They're going to have Goldberg this year at WrestleMania.
No.
They had The Rock. They had The Rock at recent WrestleManias.
And God knows with his busy schedule.
Right. So, essentially, the time-honored tradition, WrestleMania is pretty much their time-honored tradition in a nutshell. I mean, WrestleMania is basically everything about wrestling come together into this one big event.
In a lot of ways, the Pro Bowl and the All-Star Game have been in the MLB and the NFL.
Exactly. Except WrestleMania, I would argue, might be bigger than those because in WrestleMania, in storyline terms at least, it all matters.
Yeah, and at least, I mean, the purists that you see in the other leagues aren't as militant in WWE.
I mean, cities place bids now for WrestleMania. It's like the Super Bowl and the Olympics. That's
why it always bugged me when people say, "Oh, wrestling's not a sport." It still comes with its own disciplines. It still extraordinarily hard to do. Even to make it, it's hard to do.
You can find any shoot video, or I could probably find somebody, and you can talk to any of them. It hurts to be a professional wrestler.
Yeah, and it's not like and there is a bar for entry. It's not like any poor schmo off the street can just dress in colorful tights and say, "I'm going to be a wrestler now." One broken neck later.
Well, also, it's like anything else. Like, you got to start in the lower leagues, essentially the minor leagues, the minor promotions, and there, I hope you have another job ready because you ain't making much money.
Oh boy, and
if you're going to be training for school and stuff, that's going to cost you money too.
That's kind of it's weird that sports has become that, where it's something that it was essentially something to pass the time, a children's game or sort of leisure activity, has become so militant and so driven that it must be. It's almost like communist. It must be this. It must. I mean, we must teach our men to be strong.
I mean, you can argue this for you might be able to argue this for sports in general, but I mean, even in wrestling, it's escapism too. People use it to get away from the mundane, the over exaggerations, the headaches that is real life and the real world and what you see on the news.
And McMahon gets it. McMahon, I think, understood what his sport was supposed to be, and he knew what they wanted, and he honed right in on that. I mean, you got to give him, despite what you might think of the way he handles things personally and professionally, you got to give him props for that.
Or the way he handles things now. I mean, it's still, like I said, those key elements of wrestling, they were there when WWE first became big in the 80s, early 90s, and they're still there today.
So wrestling would not be what it is without the institutions that he helped put in.
Right. And hopefully, after he goes, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon can carry on those traditions.
He's hoping.
All right. That is going to do it for this edition of the Unspoken Podcast. Please like us on Facebook. The Unspoken Podcast is what you can find us under. And follow us on Twitter at Unspoken Podcast. Next week, episode 10. We're in double digits, Nick.
Oh, my goodness. We should have a party.
How did we
get streamers all around?
How did we get this far?
I have no idea. Well, there is this one thing called failing upwards, so I think that's kind of what we did. Me more so than you. I tend to fail downwards, but your upwards movement has carried my fat ass.
No. Well, I don't know if I could do the show without you, Nick, so.
I definitely could not do this without you, and here's hoping we get to do this, I don't know how long, as long as we can.
Right. So, here's to almost 10 episodes, and here's to another 100 at least.
And here's to our viewing audience. We love you guys. We don't know what we do without you.
Yep. All right. I'm Tom Albano, for Nick Federa, everybody else at the Undetermined Network. Thank you so much for listening in to another edition of the Unspoken Podcast. We'll see you next week. You have been listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. We'll see you next week, everybody. Good night.
Good night.